Hey, agency owners and digital marketing enthusiasts. Welcome to another exciting episode of the $5 million Milestone podcast, where Tim Kelsey and I pull back the curtain on what it really takes to build and scale a digital marketing agency. Today, we're joined by Mike Begg, the co founder and CEO of AMZ Advisors. And let me tell you, his story is nothing short of inspirational. We're diving deep into a journey that transforms a real estate background into a thriving global marketing agency specializing in Amazon consulting. In this episode, Mike's going to take us behind the scenes of building a distributed workforce spanning multiple continents, share the strategic pivots that drove his agency's growth, and reveal how he's used content to stand out in an increasingly competitive market. With no further ado, hi Mike, welcome to the program.
Hey Pierre, thank you for having me. Thank you for that intro. It's great to be here speaking with you and Tim today.
All right, yeah, you're most welcome. And let's just dive right in. So can you walk us through your journey from working in real estate, like I mentioned earlier, and sort of what key experiences led you to see the opportunity in providing marketing consulting for Amazon as a marketplace?
Of course, yeah, I'm glad to do that. And so my journey starts a little bit before that. I was originally at Deloitte, working in consulting. I absolutely hated consulting. That's usually the way I put it. And I moved into real estate development, which was an area I really liked. When I joined a company called Sears, which no longer exists, I was doing a real estate investment trust spinoff of the company. And then from there, I kind of moved into doing real estate development deals. I enjoyed real estate a lot more than I did consulting. But I kind of had a feeling that I wanted to be doing something for myself. I was still reporting and working for someone else, and that didn't feel that great or that comfortable. So I started looking at different ideas or trying to find different ways to be able to start a business for myself. And while I was working on a deal, I came across something. I came across an offer for a property we had that was interesting. And it was interesting because it was a closed mall, and Sears owned a big piece of land, and Amazon was trying to buy it. And this was back in 2014, maybe. So at the time, Amazon was mainly known for their bookstore, being the online bookstore, being a place to go buy stuff online. It still wasn't even like that crazy popular. I don't even think Prime was like really that big at that point. And I started trying to think, why would Amazon want to buy a store? They're a website. Or why would they want to buy property at a mall? And what I found out was they were turning the mall into a distribution center. So where they could actually fulfill orders to end consumers. And that kind of led me down a rabbit hole of figuring out that, you can sell product on Amazon, you can warehouse product with Amazon. And from there, it led to starting my own brand with two of my partners. We started importing products from China and selling them online on Amazon, using Amazon's fulfillment by Amazon network for the actual order fulfillment. And then beyond that, we realized that our strengths were really on the sales and marketing side, not so much on the inventory management and the purchasing side. And we kind of took that skill set and started AMZ Advisors, the agency, to help other brands be successful on the Amazon platform.
That's very cool. It's a really interesting sort of roundabout way to get into your agency, but I like how it all kind of fits together. And I think there's a lot of agency owners out there who just dabbled in marketing in some way and kind of said, "Hey, I'm actually okay at this. I'm pretty good at it. I can help other people do that too." So I really enjoyed that story and that path that you got into AMZ Advisors. I'm interested in hearing about sort of your specialization in helping others sell products on Amazon, and I don't know, how has that contributed to your success? Like, how important do you think it is to have a niche that you focus on when you're starting your agency?
I think it's incredibly important. I've met many, and at this point, I live outside of the U.S. I live in Mexico. I've traveled the world. I've met a lot of people that are digital entrepreneurs that have their own agency. They're really consultants. They just like to say it's an agency. And a lot of times, what they try to do is they try to do a little bit of everything, and that is very difficult to scale up over time, because when someone comes to you and says, "What do you do?" Well, I do this, I do that, I do that, I do that. It sounds like you don't do anything. I forgot the exact saying, but when you're a generalist in everything, you're a specialist in nothing, I think it is. And that, I think, is a big problem if you're trying to build an agency. So for us to be able to focus specifically on the Amazon niche, on a service and a fulfillment model that we understood from us selling product, it was a lot easier for us to come in and help brands that had no idea what they were doing on Amazon. They may have had more experience selling on, back then it might have been eBay or selling in retail, but wanted to transition to Amazon because it was becoming such a big platform for online purchasing. So we were able to take our skill set in that specific niche and help a lot of very big brands from the start scale up. So some of our early clients were brands like Burt's Bees, Neff Headwear, Rembrandt Whitening, Plackers Dental Products. So we were able to work with some very large brands early on because we had a very specific skill set. And I think that's very important if you're going to be building an agency for scale in the long term.
Yeah, I love that you, sort of naturally ended up in a place that you already had some experience and expertise in. With Pronto, it's kind of been the same way. We had our start in the IT industry. One of our founders used to work for Microsoft, and so when he started the agency, we just reached out to a bunch of small IT companies around the US that had partnered with Microsoft and knew our founder. And I think that is one of the things that also helps you scale the agency is when you have that kind of narrow focus, because as you bring on new team members, it's much easier to train someone on the specific thing that you're doing. Like I see a lot of agency owners who, are generalists and doing broader marketing consulting, and they really struggle to get that next person on board because it's really hard to replace that generalist who kind of knows a little bit about all these different kinds of businesses. But whether your focus is on IT or on Amazon products or distributing products on Amazon, I think that makes it a lot easier. Have you found that to be the case with your team members? Did that help sort of train a process and have like standardized SOPs for your team members?
It definitely does help. I think in our space, it was a little bit more difficult when we were initially growing because there weren't a lot of people that had the experience with Amazon. And it was very difficult to it still is pretty difficult to find people that actually have the knowledge of how to be successful there. So that's where the training and the SOPs become even more important. And we've kind of gotten to the point where we've been able to hire employees that necessarily don't have experience in Amazon, but they have experience in other areas of e-commerce, and then fill them in on how they take that knowledge from their previous experience working on Shopify or whatever other platform it may be, and how that translates to Amazon. Because at the end of the day, marketing's marketing. Some of the metrics are the same. Some of the measurements are the same. Just understanding how the platform works and how we service clients. And that's a lot easier to train once you already have some knowledge. So it is extremely important to have, again, a specific niche where you have a specific skill set you can train, and then you have the resources for your team to be successful.
Yeah, Mike, 100%.
And Mike, going back to that focus on Amazon and your ability to stay focused, did you ever have any temptations throughout, the lifetime of your agency to actually, venture into sort of new e-commerce channels or kind of areas, or is this something you really always said no? And if you said no, like what did you do to stay away? What was your approach on that?
I think I think things are constantly evolving. As we become a bigger and bigger agency, we're going to need to start offering other services. And we've tried things in the past. And Walmart is like a very good example of that because in theory, it's a similar platform. It should work similar to Amazon. The reality is it's much harder than Amazon to generate sales. Amazon is generally where people go to buy products. So it makes it significantly easier for us to just run the ads and put the product through SEO in front of the right consumers that want to buy the product. Walmart was a big challenge. We tried that for a little while. We didn't get much success with it. We haven't really chased Shopify or even social media. One thing we're looking at going forward is potentially TikTok shops. Obviously, depending on what happens with TikTok, but and by the time this goes live, that may be something or not.
Yeah.
We'll see. But that seems like an interesting channel as well. It's something we'll probably look forward to now that we've achieved scale on the Amazon side and we have a significant fulfillment model to actually continue to service clients in that way. We might want to focus some of the additional cash flow that we have into other service areas where we can cross-sell our services to clients that are essentially in the same industry. So.
Yeah, one thing that's hard as well is that it's not always yourself who decides to go and try a new channel or a new area of expertise. It's also your clients, and potentially your bigger clients who are like asking for those things, and then that sometimes that can be hard to say no. So I don't know if that's also part of the struggle there.
It is definitely a struggle. I mean, we hear not that frequently, but we have heard before. Where I'm going with a different partner who can do this, all for me. Great. Like, we can't do all of that right now. So if that's really what you want, then maybe that other partner is the right fit. I think clients are always getting distracted. At the end of the day, they're chasing revenue goals, they're chasing sales goals or profit goals, whatever it may be, and getting that extra channel going, adding that incremental profitability is what they want. And if they're sold a better idea by someone else, sometimes they just run with it. So, I mean, we can't always control what our partners want to do. At the end of the day, we're just trying to focus on providing the best service we can on Amazon, create a great client experience. And then in the future, if there are other opportunities to provide additional services, like TikTok shops, for example, we may be able to start pushing them that way. And that's kind of the way we've built out. For example, we have another service that's affiliate marketing specific for Amazon. So we partner with a lot of publications, a lot of affiliate networks to drive traffic to Amazon. And that's an exact model of how we did it. We built out the Amazon services, and then we started selling this additional service that's still within the Amazon sphere, but it's not that crazy far outside. And we do see success in client adoption from that way.
Nice.
I'd like to go back and talk about your team a bit more. You mentioned you're based in Mexico, and you've told Pierre and I before that your team is remotely spread out throughout Central and South America, and I think other continents around the world. Was that always the plan from the beginning, to have this distributed remote team, or is that something that sort of came up? Did COVID have an impact on that? What led to your team being so remote and globally distributed?
That's a good one. I think it kind of naturally happened over time. I mean, like I said, I was traveling a lot. I ended up coming to Guadalajara, Mexico, which is where I live. I met my now wife here. She's from here, and essentially I ended up staying. At that point, we didn't have any employees. It was just myself and my two partners. We had a couple of freelancers that we were working with, I think in the Philippines or India maybe. And that was the extent of the company. And we got to a point where we were all doing a lot of work. All three of us were handling client calls, sales calls, the actual implementation on platform. We kind of realized, like, all right, this is not going to be scalable. How do we do this? And initially we tried hiring some other freelancers, or I should say independent contractors that were American, to see if that worked. We saw some intermediate success, but generally it was a big drag on our profit margins and our revenue to figure out to keep hiring these U.S. employees. So the thought was maybe we can pivot and hire here in Mexico. And that was the initial start of it. All of our initial hires outside the U.S. were here in Guadalajara. From there, we just started looking for better talent because, I mean, Guadalajara is a big city. It's like 5 million people, but there's a lot of people all over the world and a lot of people in Mexico. So we started expanding to Mexico City, Monterrey. Then from there, we started looking in Brazil. We started looking in Argentina, Colombia. And then beyond that, we started looking in Eastern Europe. So we've been able to find really good employees in all the places that we go. And I think that's the key to it. We had a very specific skill set. Not a lot of people had Amazon experience. So even fewer had it in specific markets. So that required us to essentially open up the search parameters where we were looking for people.
Yeah, that's interesting. For us, a lot of our remote work and sort of expanding overseas. I mean, we're based in Thailand, and we started expanding into the Philippines maybe 8 years ago or something like that. But it was all in the office. And so we didn't do any remote work until COVID. And then we realized, oh, this actually works when everybody can be remote. And since then, we've started hiring in Central and South America as well. I'm interested in hearing about some of the challenges you've faced with that team, and how do you build a culture when people aren't centered around the water cooler at the office and getting FaceTime with each other. What are some of the issues that have popped up, and how have you dealt with that?
there's definitely been a few issues. I actually do have a funny story though. February 2020, we signed a 12-month lease for a 12-person office in Guadalajara. Then COVID hit. 2 weeks later, everything closed. That office was empty for an entire year. I was the only one working there because I wanted to make sure I got some money out of it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So is
yeah,
it just a giant personal office for yourself, essentially?
exactly. I had nice windows overlooking the trees and the main street. It was nice, but it was very lonely. Anyway, um, I think one of the biggest challenges when you have a remote team is, from a cultural standpoint, is essentially establishing leadership in the first part. And myself and my partners have kind of done that in a couple different ways. The main way we do it is by example. So we try to clearly communicate to our team the things that we value the most. That required us identifying the things that we value the most. And that was uh, honesty, transparency, communication, and problem solving. We figured that if we focused on those things, no matter what happens, we'll be able to at least communicate, find resolutions to problems, and provide a better service to clients and take accountability when we make mistakes. As an agency, especially as a remote agency, I mean, we've never met most of our clients in person either. So there's a lot of trust there that needs to be built. And you do that through being communicative, by being transparent when things are not working or when you're making mistakes, and owning those and showing them that you can drive results from that. And that example that we set kind of has gone down through all of our employees. So every single employee we onboard, we essentially have a conversation with them, or they talk to all the team members first, and then we have a conversation with them, and they ask us any questions. And the thing that we always hear from all of the new employees is that I have never worked in a company where everyone is so kind and so helpful and so willing to help me with the questions I have or answer the questions I have. And I think that goes back to kind of those initial principles that we focused on instilling in the team. We want people to problem solve. We want people to be communicative, and that just naturally leads to being helpful and being supportive of your teammates. And I think that is really important when you establish from a leadership standpoint what the culture should be. You start hiring people that fit that culture, removing people that don't fit that culture. It just kind of shows naturally through the rest of the company. And I mean, we continue to communicate. We continue to let the team know where we're trying to take the company and what we think we need to do to get to the destination we're headed to. And I think that they appreciate that communication, and that kind of just, again, filters down through the rest of the organization.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great. It all starts with the culture that the leadership of the company represents. And there's lots of ways to build systems that reinforce that culture as people come on board. Like one of the things we do when we're recruiting prior to interviews, we send them a link to our company values page and say, read this before you come to the interview. So even before they are an employee, we're starting to teach them about our culture. And so like planting that seed very early on. And then by the time they come on, they know we take our culture seriously. And then we reinforce it through the questions we ask on our biannual performance reviews. And it sounds like you've gotten to this point, I think we have too, where the culture almost becomes self-reinforcing. And like you were saying, they go talk to other team members, and those team members are now portraying the culture that you and your partners have established. So if someone doesn't fit into that culture or is pushing back against it in some way, it becomes very obvious, and that person starts to stand out like a sore thumb. And even the team will raise their hand and say, hey, I think this person's kind of struggling to adapt to how we do things. And then that's just a clear sign to the managers to step in and provide some coaching, or eventually realize that person doesn't fit in the long run.
Exactly. And I think that's a very clear sign to me of that. And I mean, like I said, I worked in real estate before. I was kind of I worked within a team, but I was more or less working on my own and working with external stakeholders. But when I had my own team that I was managing, we had like a 6-person office here in Guadalajara to start, and it was in a co-working space, so there were other places that people could go work. And I noticed at a certain point that no one wanted to work in the office except one person. And I was like, that's like, why does no one want to work in the office? And then I started finding out that nobody liked working with this person. He was mean, he was rude, he was just not helpful. He kind of talked back to everyone, and that was scaring people away. And that was my first kind of exposure to dealing with it. When that problem comes up, it's like, well, how do you deal with it? Either you don't address it and it's going to continue to have a negative effect on the rest of the team. It might drive your more valuable team members away, or you address it and you kind of establish what is acceptable or what's not acceptable in the work environment. And with that particular person, what we had to do was we let them go. We addressed it. We didn't like drag it out, and everyone came back into the office and everyone was happy again. So it's very interesting when you have the opportunity to observe those dynamics. It's a little bit harder in a remote team, but that was kind of my first exposure to it. And then from there, I realized when other instances of people not fitting the culture come up, they need to be addressed a lot quicker, and we need to move people out that are not a fit and continue to try to bring in new people that are a fit. And we do that pretty regularly at this point.
Yeah, I think team members notice when those kind of opportunities pop up and see how the leadership of the company reacts. And that's like a signal to everybody else, like this culture does matter, and the leadership takes it seriously and enforces it, rather than it's just some nice words painted on the wall. Like, when we were sort of making our values and our culture better documented and sort of codified in some ways, it started because we had a team member who didn't fit our culture. Up until that point, it was kind of this ambiguous thing that we just knew what it was, but couldn't describe it. But as soon as you have to go tell someone, hey, you don't really fit in here, you need to be able to point to something like, here are the company values, here's our mission statement. It makes it so much easier than as a leader or for your managers to say, to understand why that person doesn't fit in and how to have a conversation with them about that. So yeah, it sounds like we've had very similar experiences there of what developed and led to our culture being a little bit better established as we've grown.
Yeah, I agree. It is always a weird experience that first time you have to address it. And it is very difficult to put into words, but
Yeah.
it does help once you're able to do that and really explain what you're looking for, what you're trying to establish within the organization.
Do you try to do any sort of like team bonding stuff online, whether it's just fun chats or remote party sort of things? What do you do for that, building relationships amongst team members?
It's tough. I mean, fortunately, most of our team members are still in Mexico. Some are outside. I'd say probably about 40% of our team members are in Mexico. So we do get everyone together once in a while. And that helps in that sense. We have tried online things in the past, and we honestly haven't done them in a while. The main online activity we have now is really like a quarterly company-wide call where everyone can join in. We kind of, as the founders, go through the main talking points. Some of the other leadership within the company will have talking points they want to talk about. And then anyone can ask questions. That's kind of been the way it's gone towards. In the past, we've done like online games. We did like a quiz, online quiz, like challenge, kind of like I don't know, what would you call it, like pub trivia, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And that was fun. We've tried some other things, but we haven't really continued to do them consistently. And the culture's still been there, and the support's still been there. So I would like to get back to doing that more, but I do think there's other things that are more important than necessarily, hanging out with everybody and I don't know, playing a game online or something.
For sure. Yeah, we're sort of the same when it comes to that remote team building. We'll go through phases of like, okay, we really want to focus on this and build some new relationships. But once those relationships are built, they can kind of just be maintained through some basic interactions or team meetings or company-wide meetings. So yeah, we're the same way. It's every once in a while, like, okay, we should probably do something fun, but honestly, let's make sure we're focused on work first.
Yeah, definitely.
I want to change gears a little bit and talk about your marketing strategy for AMZ and how it's changed over the years. I mean, you got your start sort of in the early days of Amazon, and like you said, you worked with some big brands right away because there weren't many others who had that kind of expertise. But how has that market changed for you? I imagine there's quite a few more competitors now. And what have you had to do to keep your place in the market and maintain that differentiation you have over other competitors who have popped up?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of different agencies or consultants that have come out of the woodwork. Most of them have worked in Amazon in some role, and they're like, "I'm an Amazon expert." That's very common. There's been a few agencies that have been able to scale successfully. A couple of them have exited, but a lot of other small agencies have just kind of merged into other companies or been acquired by other companies and combined in some way. But um, the way that we've differentiated ourselves from the start, and this was something that we realized before we had any employees, was if we want to be one of the best known names in the Amazon space, we need to establish authority. And one of the ways that we did that was through content marketing. So the first thing we focused on was SEO. What are the potential questions that our clients are asking or our clients are trying to answer or people in the Amazon space are trying to answer, and how can we create as many articles as possible to answer those questions? That was how we started our content marketing journey, and that led a lot of people coming to our website. At one point, or at the top point, before Google kind of changed some things around, we were generating 60,000 unique website visitors per month purely from SEO. And that was a massive lead channel for us. So that was one way we established authority. Then from content marketing, we kind of shifted into partnerships and podcasts, webinars, video content. That was another way we were able to establish authority. We were able to get into, in a way, like groups of people that were either attending these webinars or listening to podcasts. And we were able to reach them by communicating our message. And that helps us establish more authority. So partnerships was another big way that we've done that. And now we have kind of expanded our marketing beyond just content. We do a lot of paid advertising now. We do a lot of email marketing, which in a way is distributing the content we already have. And we do a lot of different events and things like that. So it's changed over time, but I think the main thing that helped us get that initial start was establishing the authority. There's, like I said, there's a variety of ways to do that. A lot of people will create different groups or online communities. It's another good way to establish authority. It's not something we particularly do. But by doing that, your name becomes almost household in the industry. It's like, oh, I'm looking for an answer. Let me go see if it's on amzadvisors.com. Or, I'm trying to figure out this. Oh, it's the top search result. And that was really the way that we built out our marketing and the way that we established ourselves in the Amazon e-commerce space.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, when you're the company with all the answers, you have all the trust because you've just proven yourself as experts. I'm also wondering if, in your early days, you started working with some big brands. I'm sure that helped build some authority for you too, where, all these smaller distributors or sellers on Amazon look up to larger brands. I think this goes for all kinds of agencies. If you've got that big name, the smaller business wants to be that. It's this aspirational testimonial that you can get from someone who's like, oh, wow, if that kind of company is working with AMZ, then they can probably make me into that kind of company one day too.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely that aspect of it from the sales process. I mean, obviously, we show the companies we've worked with, the clients we've had success with, the case studies and all that type of things. But the other important thing of working with big clients early was that we were able to accelerate the learning curve a lot faster. So we had a significantly higher ad budget, significantly more ability to try different things and learn what worked and what didn't work. So if I was working with a small company now, let's say they have $1,000 a month ad budget, it's not the same as working with a company that has $100,000 a month ad budget, and you need to figure out how to deploy that and how to get the best results from it. And that helped us push ourselves to learn new things, try new things, find out what worked and what didn't work. So I think the benefits of working with a big client is more than just during the sales process or brand recognition. It's more, we learned to do a better job because we had to, or we were going to lose these big clients.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Cool. I think you've got such a cool story, and I think there's a ton that other agencies, even if they're not focused on the Amazon marketplace, can learn from things like getting into a niche, establishing yourself with content, having a remote team. Yeah, there's lots of cool stuff that you've gone through, and I'm sure it's been a lot of work over the years, but a very cool story to turn AMZ into such a successful agency.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a fun ride. I mean, we keep growing, we keep investing in other projects, and at this point, we have 5 or 6 portfolio companies that we're involved in. So that's part of the journey. It's just being successful in one area, then figuring out how to apply it to others. So.
Well, thanks so much, Mike, for sharing that story. This was a really great conversation. Really enjoyed everything you said about the importance of building a strong culture, and kind of going through with, sharing that culture with your new employees and kind of keeping it alive. So again, thanks so much. If our listeners want to connect with you online, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Of course. Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me again. If anyone wants to reach out to me, the best way to get in touch with me is directly at my email, mike@amzadvisors.com. You can also reach out to us through amzadvisors.com, or you can reach me on LinkedIn. My name is, I think, Michael Begg on there. Those are probably the 3 best places to connect with me.
Okay. And for those who are listening, if you enjoyed this episode, do me a favor, subscribe to the 5 Million Milestone podcast. Share this with another agency owner who's looking to break through their current limitations, and let us know what you learned. Until next time, keep pushing boundaries, embrace global opportunities, and keep chasing that $5 million milestone.